Oh, fantastic.
So, yeah.
Me too.
So thank you guys for joining us. If people are joining in the comments, we're going to be talking today about panels, the art of the panel, the why, the how, the art science, the marketing, and why you guys put yourselves through this, right? So, and this is kind of the first one I'm doing on TikTok. I'm going to be making it into a series so that we can, everybody can get a chance to actually get that experience. And it's also a great chance to do one of the primary things that the authors love about panels, which is marketing. It's like marketing without actually the icky parts of marketing, right?
Right.
Sure. So we're going to first start with a brief introduction of who each of you guys are to the audience. And hopefully I'll get this all downloaded and put up on YouTube afterwards. So we're going to start with Mel, then Katharine, and Marshall. You get to be last because I'm sexist and you're the boy.
Sure.
My name's Mel Todd. I'm the owner and primary author for Bad Ash Publishing. I have about 40 some plus novels out, lots of anthologies, and I actually enjoy being on panels. It gives me something to talk about that isn't necessarily myself.
And hello, everyone. I'm Katharine E. Wibell. I am a high fantasy author, and I write everything from young adult, new adult to adult side of high fantasy, from the light and bright, clean fantasy, portal fantasy, isekai, all the way down to the grittier side of dark fantasy, dabbling with grimdark. So I love it all. When it's second world, take me away, and that's the kind of things I write.
And I am Marshall J. Moore. I have 6 novels currently published variously indie press or self-pub, but my debut traditionally published novel, The Henchperson's Guide to Unionizing, is a cozy horror coming out from Bantam Books in fall, September of 2026.
And that looks stunning because they sent you a mock-up of the cover.
Straight
edges and everything.
I am so blown away by it.
Now, we are talking about panels it looks like we have a few more viewers coming in. So how is it you guys got into first, like, what does a panel mean to you actually? Like doing it, what is it that it looks like for you?
Well, most of the time it's going to depend on whether I'm moderating or if I'm just on the panel. At least 70% of the time, you're going to know what the panel is about. And I do say 70% because it depends on if something happened and the panels got mixed up, whether you got the email that told you, whether they're slotting you in somewhere because somebody else had to cancel. So it runs about 70%. Depending on what it is, I may do research. As you can see, I have 1 or 2 books back here. So I've been on panels about Robert E. Howard. So I will go and double check the books that I have about him. If I know it's going to be a high fantasy panel, I may go and take a look at my high fantasy stuff. Now, if it's moderating, usually I then know a lot about the subject, or at least I'm going to go research the subject. And depending on the con and what that track director has available, I may even make up PowerPoint presentations for it, just to give people something else to look at. So it really does depend on what you do and how much research you need to do. Or sometimes they're just game panels. And those are a lot of fun. And you just hope you can talk faster than John Hartness.
Good luck with that one. That man is slick.
Well, for me, like, panels are just a great way as an author to not only talk about topics that you enjoy or you're familiar with, but also be able to meet other potential readers and fellow writers out in the community. And with my experiences, fortunately, I've known all the topics beforehand, though there will be the day where I'm going to get the last minute throw on or something's going to change. But it is one of those things that, depending on the con and everything, and depending on the tracks that you are slotted in, you can have a whole variety of topics that you will be surprised that you have some say in. For instance, again, I'm high fantasy. I do a lot of myth-based, I pull a lot of my inspiration from myths. So I've been on panels, everything that's just talking about purely mythology. I have a Viking dark fantasy retelling. And so I was on a history panel talking about Vikings impact on British culture. And so it's like, it is fun to see what you can talk about and just share your passions with other people. And I've always enjoyed being on a panel.
Paneling?
How about you, Marshall?
Oh, yeah, I figured. Paneling is edutainment for adults and all ages, really, depending on if it's a late night panel or not. Your goal as a panelist is to either entertain or educate your audience, hopefully both. And in the case of everybody in this little TikTok live, it's going to be presumably something about books or publishing, whether that's the craft of writing or an exploration of genre. Either way, your audience is going to be composed primarily of readers and or other writers, or your friends who hopefully also fall into one of those prior categories. So you want to give them something that is worth the hour of their time to walk away from having learned something and gained some knowledge and hopefully made some laughs along the way.
So, all very good question. Great explanations of what a panel is. How long have you guys been doing panels at various conventions, not just Dragon Con, but other places? Like, I know I stacked the deck with people I know who do good panels. So,
What year is this?
2026.
20, I guess a decade. I literally had to count. So I guess it's basically been about a decade, maybe. No, actually, it's been longer than that. No, it's been longer than that. It's probably been 15 plus years.
So 15 plus years as doing them as a content on the content side, right?
Yeah, and running them.
And how about you guys?
For me, it's I'm on slightly the newer side. I mean, I've been doing it for, I think, maybe edging into the fifth year of doing that. And the first couple years, I was purely a panelist. And then after that, I started moderating. And actually, I will admit, I have a lot of fun when I'm a moderator. And I'm so sorry for anybody who's on my panels, because I come out with I come prepared and I have so many questions that are, one, obviously topic friendly, but like, two, I like to just to see. I like to push the buttons with people sometimes to see what they'll come up with depending on the topics and everything. So I love doing both, but it's been, I would say, 4 to 5 years. I would have to look at the exact date.
Well, leaping immediately to Katie's defense, she is a fantastic moderator, and I'm always pleased to be on one of her panels. I also really enjoy moderating. It's almost exactly 3 years for me, because I know my first one was Nerdy Gras in 2003, as the name suggests, Mardi Gras time period. And since then, I've gotten to be on a virtual panel for the Nebula Conference. I've moderated at Worldcon, and I've been on several DragonCon panels and all sorts of other ones. So more to come, hopefully.
Now, did all of you guys go to panels before you became a panelist?
Yes.
So, no. Oh, that's my girl, head first in. So what was that like? Because you'd never seen it. How did they tell you what to do?
Well, here's the thing. Like, I've never been on a true panel, but I've done podcasts before, and I've been on other kind of things. So I had exposure of what those are like, and I've also hosted my own weekly live chats with other authors. So again, I'm used to this conversational style. So it wasn't that dramatically different, except the thing is now, instead of like looking at the person I'm talking to, I have to like also tilt to look at the audience, because I'm not necessarily just talking to so-and-so, I'm talking to a whole group of people. So that was more of my biggest change, was where do I look when people are talking? So.
Great segue into what do you do physically on a panel about looking at people, stuff like that? Mel's like,
is this just?
I'm not quite sure I understand the question.
Like, do you have a preferred placement? Because you have to look at what's going on, and most panels, if you're watching this and have not gone to a convention, we put you guys all up at a table, like Thanksgiving table, but you're only on one side.
At least for me, it depends. Especially at DragonCon, the rooms can vary. So sometimes I might be in a really narrow hallway where basically the width of the panelist table is the hallway. Sometimes it's this wide V, so you're constantly having to do this to check reactions, to see if there's questions. But then there's an also lot of looking down the table because you're watching and listening to the other panelists, whether or not you're a moderator. So there's usually lots of this back and forth, and then scanning just, and lots of times, at least for me, because I have a background in teaching, I'm also watching the audience to make sure that they're both engaged, not bored, and not offended. Because sometimes we have a tendency to get a little bit raunchier than maybe what we should. And so I do also
Don't paint us
check
all with
and
your brush,
see
Mel.
ages. Me,
Not
never.
at all.
Well, I will go and piggyback on that. I will say, like, when I'm a moderator, I'm looking more at the audience than the fellow panelists, because I am trying to assess where people are, what they're interested in, and I will totally side tangent to, like, again, I come prepared with the various different kind of questions and topics, and so that if people are kind of looking like they're bored in this one kind of stream of thought, I'll veer it to another, and to make sure we get the engagement and people get what they want out of whatever the topic is. Now, when I'm a panelist, it's a little less so, but regardless of the fact, it's one of those things that I will obviously acknowledge and look at my fellow panelists, but I want to make sure I also scan the audience, because I want to acknowledge they're there, they're present, and again, curious of how their interest is and whatever we're talking
You
about.
don't want them falling asleep, right?
No.
Preferably not.
No, it can happen sometimes.
Cons are
Particularly
exhausting.
Sunday and Monday are like the two hardest days, I think, honestly. Those are the days where if you see me sitting down, it's going to be shocking because I'm too worried that I'm going to fall asleep.
So my answer is in regards to usually a panel, for those of you in the audience who aren't aware, is set up very similarly to what we're doing right now, where it's one moderator and several guests. And I want to try and split my attention between both the person who asked the question, typically the moderator, and also whoever has already answered the question, which my other guests have said something that I thought was a really good, profound, insightful answer, and so I can sort of tailor my response to sort of riff off and build off of what they were saying, and then also look out into the audience, because you don't just want a conversation that's facing this way the entire time. You want to feel as an audience person that you're being engaged with by the people on the panel. The trick is I get distracted if I look at someone's face for too long, so I pick a spot between two chairs and zoom in on that the whole time.
Good trick, particularly if you get stage fright. And do you want to hear the funny one of my first year where they ConOps thought they were going to have to call the EMS on me?
What?
Because this is actually on topic, this story. We walked into Regency 6-7 for the, it was something about science and magic panel. And Regency 6-7, if you don't, I know, 6-7, Regency is huge. It holds 1,000+ people when full. Okay. I actually have stage fright, and I get it. And we walk in and I go, how big is this room? And they go, oh, it holds 800 people. And apparently I went sheet white. And my track second, they look at him and they go, is she going to be okay? And he goes, are you going to be okay? I'm not the moderator. It will be fine. I am not the moderator. It will be fine. And I am saying this for 30 minutes, okay? Spoiler, I was the moderator. Because so this is where the fun part of sometimes your moderator might change last minute, because our moderator walked in and she looked at me and she goes, I have had 6 panels in a row. I can answer questions. My brain is too fried to moderate. You're doing it. And I went, okay. It was Jody, Mel. Jody Lynn 9 did that to me and I freaked out. And so
what are you going to say back to Jody Lynn Nye, though?
What? I mean, you're going to say yes, ma'am. That's what you're going to say. That's what I said. And so then I get up on there, and I will say Regency 6-7 was distracting because they have a monitor there that then shows the panel, and I kept wanting to stare at the panel on the screen because I am an older millennial, but we are still trained to look at the pretty screen. So that was a very confusing one. And the best part was then a couple years later, I'm telling this story at a con, and Regina goes, "It doesn't hold about 800 people. It was set to hold 1,200 that year." And I went, she goes, "You can't freak out afterwards." And I went, "Just watch me." It's just like, okay. So it can be scary. I wish I'd known that part. I just kept looking at the monitor and then trying to look at everybody else. I was confused. I think I eventually found somebody in the audience that I knew, and I just stared at them. Probably. It was very weird. But you do get that. And but why do we go through all this torture, right? The stage fright, the balancing it. And that is because panels allow for you to meet other authors, right? So you get to meet other authors, cross-pollinate your fandom, and it's the best non-salesy marketing probably out there, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I mean,
It's
you have
definitely one of them, yes.
I would say it's definitely a target-rich environment. Marshall went on and he did a panel on cozy fantasy, and everybody in the room likes cozy fantasy.
Yep.
So, so what has been your favorite? What's your favorite story actually from a panel? Like good, bad, crazy, not crazy.
Well, there was this one panel that I was on where we had to do this representing our own characters in a date night scenario.
Yes. Oh, this is a great story also because it also illustrates the danger of my knowing who you are and responding to my contacts, because there's always the walk on, right? Where you get suddenly
well,
thrown
I probably
onto
was
a panel.
your walk on because you didn't know me at this time. But the point being, for anybody who doesn't know, there are different types of panels.
Marshall was my
I was the
walk
walk-on.
on.
I was
Okay,
having a
truly
drink at the
walk-on.
West End with a friend.
But to explain this to anybody who's listening who knows, there's, for a lot of conventions, there's daytime and then nighttime panels. Nighttime are a little more adult forward. So this was a later night panel one, just to make sure of this. And the concept was the authors who were part of this were going to embody one of their book characters. And it was a virtual, like a live action dating game. Someone was a represented character who was interested in the other three and would ask the questions. And I was fortunate enough to be on a fantastic panel with Marshall right here was one of them, and Sarah Silver was also another one of the three contestants. And it was the funniest thing because we were being, asked all these kind of questions of how we would handle, like, what is our dream date as our characters? And we just had to embody whatever that was. As a kind of a male disliking shield maiden, it was a interesting response for me.
And I was a mermaid whose sole ambition in life is to drown a human man. But my dating questions were like, how well can you swim? Perfect date spot. The open ocean.
So there are definitely more serious panels out there that are educational or talking about topics and stuff. This one was just for fun, and so that's one of my favorite ones.
Mine too.
Oh, for me, honestly, one of the ones I really enjoyed was a few years ago. I was on a panel about basically fantastical cats and fantasy, etc.
You guys
And
don't
it
all have
was
to pick my panels.
it was myself, Faith Hunter, Jody Lynn Nye, and like two other people, because we're talking a few years ago. But it was just hilarious because all of us had stories about the crazy things our cat had caught. And the winner, however, was Faith Hunter. Or not Faith Hunter, but the other gal on the panel, whose name I cannot remember. Her cat brought her a tarantula. So the neighbor upstairs apparently had a tarantula that escaped and got down into her apartment, and she's screaming, standing on top of her couch, and the guy's knocking on the door saying, "I think you found my tarantula." Yeah, that one. It was just, they were so funny talking about cats, and then the hilarious things. Because for me, the most annoying one that cats would bring to me is I have cathedral ceilings. and they keep bringing in hummingbirds and then letting them go.
Glad they're alive.
Getting hummingbirds. Oh, yeah. And they're now at the top of my cathedral ceilings. It is a very interesting art to catch hummingbirds.
That would be a trick.
I'm very relieved right now that I keep my cat as a hostage and he doesn't go outside.
My worst one is probably involves being in the audience and learning too much about one of the panelists' intimate life, but I'm going to skip right over that because I can't say anything about it. But my best one is probably that there was one con where I was one of like 4 panelists on a Cozy Fantasy panel, and this was like right when Cozy Fantasy was starting to take off, but like the pool of panelists was like whoever had a tangential knowledge of the subject, essentially, because I don't think mine was even out yet. And the moderator called in sick. So it was just the 4 of us up there, and I went, okay, guess I'm going to moderate this. And I completely improv moderated for a full hour panel, and it went really well. And I was like, that actually wasn't that hard. I want to moderate again. And now I'm obsessed with it.
As somebody who has to panel people, that is the hardest thing. That is one of my biggest nightmares, is that the key person, which is often the moderator, is not able to make it. That is one of my nightmares. I will literally have that nightmare multiple times a year. And it can happen even sometimes after Dragon Con. It's so much fun because your unconscious mind has no awareness of time. But it's hard to find good moderators because some people do not want to moderate. Like I know somebody who's a college professor, and when you can force them to moderate, they're very good. However, you have to force them to moderate. So, because they're like, I don't want to be a college professor. It's my day job. I'm an author. And I'm like, but I want a moderator.
Well, there is a different thing of like being, reactive versus proactive. So reactive responses, some people are more comfortable with. I like having power. I like the one in power. I like being the one in the room being like, Mwahaha, you have to listen to me for an hour and obey my, that's okay for me. So I'm okay being a moderator, but there are definitely some people who are more comfortable with one role or the other. So I can totally see that.
And there are some people who are, part of the art of a panel, right, is everybody has to take time to talk. And there are sometimes guests who can be harder to get them to shut up. Mel has a great story about one of them.
So I was moderating a panel, and so if you know some authors, you know their political leanings. Robert Sawyer, very nice man, is extremely far left. John Ringo, also a nice man, is extremely far right. And both of them really like to talk. So I started the panel by looking at John and going, I know the numbers for the 3 most important women in your life. Be good or I will call them. And he'd be reaching for the microphone. I'm just like, no, put it down. And he'd stop. I'm like, no, because both of them could like go on a rant for like 15, 20 minutes. And you're fighting they don't pause long enough for you to even say, okay, that's nice. Let's hear from the next person. So sometimes that can be very difficult, but it's also, I found a couple tricks to work with it, especially if it's somebody who I know, like, a certain David Weber, who really, really, really loves to talk. You just, when he starts...
Just go in with 3 questions, you might get to the second one.
Maybe. With those people, I just look at them and say, hey, I know that you get really into your subject, so I'm going to set a timer. And when it goes off, your 5 minutes are up. And most of the time, they're not offended because I'm not saying that they talk too much, just that they're way into the subject, and I get it, but we have to let the other panelists talk. And I've done that a couple times on presentations, too.
I have literally taken John Ringo's mic from him, and he handled it very well.
Mm-hmm.
And I do mean, I reached over, picked it up and went like this. Yes.
Can the fantasy room have one of those teeny little
hourglasses?
Yeah,
hourglass egg timer.
Just pass it along. It's like, nope, next. Just pass it down.
Here's my
It's a
5-minute
talking
timer.
stick, but yes.
I
And
see
just
you
look
that,
around and be
or
like,
is
you
you
have
like-
this much max.
I see that, and I'll raise you the like bill hooks that they would like pull people off the stage in vaudeville times. Like you're done, actually.
We have paddles somewhere, and I there's been one or two people where I'm like, I could use this paddle.
That's a Dragon Con After Dark thing, I think.
No, well, it just
No,
says 10 minutes
Seska.
warning. Yes.
You need to get it so the moderator can control each of the microphones, and we just hit the mute button so their microphone no longer works.
I'm not going to say that we haven't already been planning that.
Yeah.
Because Dave has been trying to figure out how to do that.
I do find that a lot of panels there is like one person on every panel, at least, who likes the sound of their own voice a little too much. And as a moderator, it's kind of incumbent upon you to rein that person in as best you're able. And sometimes that also involves just like encouraging the more reticent panelists to speak up.
To me, one of the harder things is learning. There's a give and take. Catherine, you started to say
I was going to
something.
say that there's also the opposite, especially, again, different roles. When you're a panelist, there are certain things you don't have to worry with because you're not the moderator. The moderator is there to moderate, to make sure things are flowing smoothly. And again, someone does not talk too much. On the other hand, there have been panels when I've moderated where you get a very talkative group, except one person. And they're that person that's waiting for their turn. And so as a moderator, you have to then make sure you engage them enough to make sure they get their chance to have their say, because not everybody, not every panelist is comfortable just going in there. And depending on the panel, depends on like how the social etiquette is. There are certain panels that everybody knows how to like jump in and talk. There are other ones that politely wait. And so it's one of those give or take situations. And as a moderator versus a panelist, you kind of have to take that into consideration.
You know what the best job experience for being a moderator probably is? Dungeon Master.
Yes.
It's the same thing.
It is.
Yeah. No, it so is. You are so right.
You gotta balance
Oh my
the
God,
party.
I don't know why I never thought of it, but it is so, other than I don't mind moderating, but I absolutely hate being a dungeon master, so.
Bring the shy ones out of their shell. Gotta make sure the diva doesn't dominate the whole hour. Like, it's DMing.
It is a balancing act. The other thing also is, it's funny because I know there are people, and with doing this, I've had a couple of people go, well, I really want to panel with X person because they're my good friend, right? Is sometimes you run into a problem with that because you can kind of, without meaning to, make a click on the panel. Because in some cases it's, and I've seen it happen a couple times, and it's generally surprised me when I've seen it, which is, I know two authors actually who they ask not to be paneled together. They're very good friends, and they know that when they are on a panel together, they start to click and kind of like they almost exclude even the audience from their little thing. They're like, hey, yeah, remember that thing on Discord? And you're like, what the fuck's going on Discord?
We're not in your group chat.
In the audience, yeah. So it becomes a very interesting thing, along with the fact that it can, even if they don't do it to the audience, they can still accidentally do it to their panelists. So it's an interesting balancing act for sure. So, what are your favorite topics to talk about?
Books.
Books.
That's cheating. You're all authors. Like, what about books?
I like talking crafts. I like the writing track stuff where like the audience is primarily aspiring writers at various points along their journey, and they want to learn either the writing craft stuff or the publishing industry navigational stuff, the things that are helpful to you as you are coming up in your process, and that those ahead of you on the ladder can help pull you up after. And like we've all been there. Like I definitely learned the vast amount of my initial experience with publication was literally going to writing track panels and like getting directly exposed to people who are further along. And I've come a long way since then. And you know, it's my obligation, my privilege to pass along to the people who are next on that ladder. So I really like the writing panels and the craft panels.
And see, I do not like craft panels I like
Okay.
publishing panels and tools that I use,
Mm.
but the craft, I'm like, it is so. Every single person writes so differently that I can give you general craft hints, like use stronger verbs, show, don't tell. But after that, I'm like going, it's too hard to do that as generalized information, other than the stuff you've heard 1,000 times, and some of it which I disagree with. But publishing, I'll talk to you all day about.
I love
And
getting
I was to say, like, I do love both.
Go ahead, Katie.
I was gonna say I do love both those, but to do something a little different because again, it depends on what you're passionate about. And I could talk all day about mythology. I would sit down with you and we'll be like, what kind of mythos do you like? What kind of like who's your favorite creature and all that stuff. So anytime I put on one of those panels, I love to nerd out about that stuff. But going back to the fact that if I'm ever put on again on the publishing side, marketing side, even to the craft side of the actual writing, I enjoy those thoroughly because it's again kind of what reiterating what Marshall as well as Mel said is like you're sharing a little bit of your experiences with people, what has worked for you, what hasn't worked for someone, hasn't worked for you, and everybody's experiences are a little different in all the above. So we're just sharing what worked with us and kind of helping each other raise up to elevate each other to a new status.
Yeah, I'm a little bit pushing back against what you're saying there, Mel, as far as like the craft stuff, because like, yes, of course it's subjective, and of course we all have different approaches and processes, but like every craft panel, you're going to learn about other people's approaches and their techniques, and like writing advice should never be prescriptive, right? There's almost no hard and fast, thou shalt do this, thou shalt not do this rules, but by seeing what your contemporaries and your peers are using in their craft and their approach, what tools they are incorporating, you can figure out maybe I can try that. Maybe that thing will work for my approach. And I don't see the benefit in not expanding yourself to that horizon.
Oh, no. Remember, I said I don't like being on those panels. I enjoy going to them. It just isn't something that I prefer to talk about because usually the one thing that I will tell people every single time when I start one of those panels is I'm like, anybody who tells you have to do it this way, quit listening to them. I said, because as far as I've been able to tell, there's only one rule that is absolutely non-negotiable. One, you can't edit anything that isn't written.
And two, don't use Gen AI.
Well, yeah, that doesn't get.
But we now have like, 2 rules. It's taken us hundreds of years, but we got 2 rules.
I wish we didn't have to.
But I'm like going, because everything else, I'm like, you have to write it. The number of people, I'm like, well, I'd like to be a writer. What do I do? Sit down and write it. That's my answer every time because I can't tell you whether you're the next Ernest Hemingway or if you're going to just be writing It Was a Dark and Stormy Night for the rest of your career. But you still have to put the words on the paper or computer or however you want to write it before anything matters. You can have the world's most fantastical, intricate, wonderful universe in your head. If it isn't on paper, virtual or digital, it doesn't matter.
Personally, I will not stand for the Sir Thomas Edward Bulwer Lying and slander, but go ahead. He's the guy who coined that phrase. Seska, dark and stormy night.
Oh, yeah.
I did say the writing nothing except. Though honestly, I was thinking more Snoopy. Oh, come on. Oh, God, I keep forgetting I'm old. Okay. In Peanuts,
on the doghouse.
Snoopy's on top of his house. That's the only sentence he ever writes is it was a dark and stormy night for 70 years.
I actually, on my desk, have Snoopy on his thing typing, but it says happiness is writing your own story. Not a quote from Peanuts, but it's very cute, so it's on my desk.
That is cute.
I'm going to derail this just real quick, and then Seska, you can ask your next question. One of the best cosplays I saw at Dragon Con was a couple's cosplay that one of them was Snoopy on the doghouse, and the other was the Red Baron.
And that's excellent.
Wait, I think I remember seeing that one. It was funny.
It was?
So, yeah.
Oh, that's excellent.
Okay. Derailment over.
So what? So we
honestly,
talked about,
wait a second. That's actually one of the coolest things about going to conventions is when you see the characters that you've either written or read about as cosplay. I mean, because I read Snoopy for decades before it ever occurred to me that I could be a writer. And just getting to see that, to see these things that you've read and have, they've become like your friends, to see them in real life as cosplay is literally one of the best things about going to conventions. And knowing that maybe someday somebody might cosplay as one of your characters is like, it's like one of those ultimate dream things.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's part of why we started Page the Stage, was because I love the literary cosplays. And I know we've seen a lot more of them, thanks in part, I think, to TikTok, and Book Talk, and specifically on it, because authors have always wanted to see that. And there's always been like those few people who will do it, but they get so kind of used to being ignored that it's cosplayers thrive on attention. But nothing wrong with that. You put that much work into something, you want some attention, man. And so, but yeah, that's part of why we started Page to Stage, because I know authors always want it and cosplayers want to do it, but this way they have a home to do it. Hey, Mama D. So we've talked some about why is it you do panels from a professional standpoint? Like, who would you be your ideal person? You can even name a name to do a panel with. Yeah, I can come up with some doozy panels too, Kay.
Honestly, at this point, I've been really lucky and spoiled. I've gotten to do panels with Patricia Briggs, with Faith Hunter, Jody Lynn Nye. I've met an awful lot of both my literary heroes. The number of people that I haven't done panels with that I'm hoping to is relatively small at this point. I'm hoping to, in April, to at least get to be on a panel with Brandon Sanderson. That would be pretty cool. Other than that, I mean, I've been very, very blessed and very lucky. Now, part of it's also that I do a significant number of conventions that are very high percentage authors. So I'm lucky about that. But honestly, at this point, this is going to be so fangirly of you that this is going to be ridiculous. There is an author. Her name is J.C. Lynn. She has gotten one book out. That's it. But it's For Whom the Bell Tolls. And she does this entire skit on TikTok called Hell's Bells and everything. I'm sorry. That is just one of the most fun books to read. But part of it was because of all of her skits. It made that world so much richer and everything else, so that you weren't reading a new world. You were reading about old friends. And I would love to actually get to meet her and talk to her. And then Abigail Owens. I just read 2 of her books in a series. I want to chain the woman to a desk and have her explain to me how the heck she plotted that. Because every page, it pivoted. Everything. I was like going, how did you do this? Because book 2 completely flipped book 1 on its head. And at the end of book 2, book 3 just got, and I'm like, woman, I want to know how you plotted this. So there you go.
See, on a professional level, I approach it a little differently. I'm less concerned of who's on the panel with me. Now, it's always fun to have someone that you're like star-eyed to be like, oh, I'm on the panel, so. But for me, one of the reasons as in the professional mindset is that no matter what I'm talking about, I'm exposing myself to potential new readers and hopefully getting, exposure. So like I may be on a panel with Brandon Sanderson, and I've been on panels with Patricia Briggs, and, people may be going to see them, but because I'm there and, here's my 2 cents about whatever, and I'm introducing myself, there's that exposure, which again, depending on how you are entering publishing and voicing as an indie author, that exposure is greatly beneficial. So for me, I'm approaching it as, hey, every time I'm on a panel, I potentially could get a new super fan, which is what I want. So that's how I approach it. But yes, anyway, that's my 2 cents.
Yeah. I said earlier that, I want the experience of the panel for an audience member to be edutainment. I want them to be entertained, but also to walk away having learned something. And to me, that doesn't run exactly parallel with the person on the panel who wants to make it a 60-minute advertisement for their book, right? You want it to be good for everybody. There's going to be 3 to 5 other people on stage with you most times. And so I want good conversation partners. I want people like Andrea Stewart is a fantastic panelist. Every time I see her on anything, she is so good about sharing the mic. She has excellent stage presence. But when like she says what she needs to say and she gets it out and she passes it to the next person, or she'll engage with the other person who does it, that's the sort of person I want to panel with. I also want a smart and insightful moderator. My dream moderator would be Mary Robinette Kowal, because I listen to Writing Excuses religiously, and she again is smart and sharp and insightful, and she knows what questions to ask and how to move the conversation along and how to engage everyone on the panel.
So hard is making sure everybody gets a chance to say. And I will say honestly, on a panel, I think, and you guys can correct me if I'm wrong, but after watching, let's say, a lot of panels, the best panels that I see people connecting with are the ones that aren't buy my book, buy my book, buy my book. And I'm going to tell you as a person who assigns panels, if I think there's maybe a limit of saying that once, maybe twice, and we're getting to the ideal time to say buy my book. So, because a good moderator will always leave a few minutes for people to say buy my book at the end.
Well,
So,
well, the other thing is people love my books. I have super fans and stuff, but my readership is like this. And I know that my readership is like this. So if I'm talking about books, I want to use examples where I think the majority of the audience has probably read it or at least heard of it. So I'm almost never going to use my stuff unless it's a super specific question about how do I write XYZ. I'm going to try to use a book that's way more popular and much more widely read, because otherwise I'm talking about something and everybody's just hearing blah, 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 because they haven't read or seen this book or anything else. So most of the time I'm trying to use a Brandon Sanderson, a Kevin J. Anderson, a Patricia Briggs, because the odds are somebody in the room has read that. And while I'd love to have everybody be like, oh no, I bought your book, that's not a realistic thing in most panels. Unless, of course, there's one person in the room and they came for me, which has happened.
I like to zoom out even further and use like the closest
TV
we get
movie.
to universal. Yeah, I like to get to as close as we can get to like universal pop culture. So when I'm trying to like cite specific like narrative examples, my go-tos are like Star Wars, the Avengers, Lord of the Rings, like things that the audience probably all has at least a slight touchstone on. Because again,
Superman.
Superman is another great one. Like you said, Mel, you can't assume that they've read your stuff because we're all tiny drops in the bucket. We are not universal pop culture standards, but everybody's
not yet. We're working on it.
So, what is probably your paneling pet peeve? Other than we've covered the buy my book, buy my book. So other than that one, and you can just say that was it, because Marshall kind of kicked this question off.
My paneling pet peeve is, and I admit that I have a little bit of arrogance about it, but the panelists who get up there and go, well, you have to think and look at, I'm like, oh my dear God, please don't do this unless you actually know how to speak in public. Because if every other word is a filler because you either can't figure out what to say or something, I'm like, there's a couple options. Either look at the moderator and say, hey, I need to think about that for a second. Can you skip to the next person? 100% fine. Nobody's even going to blink. But doing all the
Or if you know you're like that, you can tell the moderator ahead of time, which is why it's really handy for the moderator to show up a little early so the authors can talk to them or say, hey, look, I have a trigger on this topic. Please let's not talk about that. Or
give me a heads up so I can practice answers.
Like, just let me go last on any time you ask a question type thing.
Yeah, but that's my biggest pet peeve is I'm like, practice or do something, but you're hurting your reputation when you speak like that on a panel.
My biggest pet peeve, and this goes back to the writing craft and the publishing side and the marketing side of it versus just talking about literature and the love of that, is the fact there will be people who will talk and definitely have the air that their way is the only way. And I hate that because for me, and this is just me, there is no one right way to write, publish, market your book. And I say it every time I'm a moderator. I say it, anytime I get a chance, because everybody's experience is your own experience. What works for one person doesn't work for another. And anytime there is someone on a panel with me and they're talking about like, this is the way or bust. And I'm like, that's not the way. That's
Publishing is so choose your own adventure.
At least right now. Absolutely.
So,
I was going to give my answer. Yeah. You mentioned earlier, Seska, about how sometimes there will be a clique formed on the panel.
Mm-hmm.
I think my pet peeve is when the clique is one of the panelists and the moderator. Like
that is always
when the rest of us showed up to play D&D and they've got a tennis match going, like
yeah, no, that's not fair. So that is really hard. So what would you say are your tips for newcomers doing it? I love doing this so that people can figure out if they are the person. But what are your tips for doing this?
yeah,
Okay, I will give one of my pet peeves as a visual person, because I record a lot of my panels to put on YouTube, right? Is and this one's really hard and it's very high level, but it's the body language. And it's not just resting, unpleasant face. I'm trying not to get TikTok to flag this. But like, even just because sometimes you can't control that. I get a face sometimes that looks like I'm seeing a war zone in Iraq and I'm just trying to figure out something. But and I've seen it. So it's, bear in mind, you're on stage. People want to like you, and your body language can really put people off. So,
I mean, if I had to give advice to somebody who hasn't done it before, my advice is this is a job interview. You may not realize it, but it's a job interview. And the people in the audience are interviewing you to see if they're interested in entering the worlds that you are writing about. So act like a professional, which means you don't degrade other people. You don't bring in politics or religion into it, unless, of course, that's a panel topic. You try to speak clearly. And especially if you are somebody who has a hard time thinking on, just off the top of your head, great. Ask the moderator, hey, do me last, or can you give me some heads up of some of the questions so I can think earlier? But my number one thing is do not show up drunk. And note, especially some of the cons are half party. They are party. And most of the time, having a drink, even on the late night panels, isn't a big deal. But we have all seen panelists.
Between I had a few cocktail drinks, and
I've had to say, yeah, don't, because it is a job interview. And trust me, anybody who's watched you up there on the panel going, yeah, no, that's so funny, they're never picking up your book. And they're going to tell other people, oh, no, I don't read them because they were such a jerk. Well, and I'm tell at that point, you failed.
As the person
I don't know, I had a great time being a drunk mermaid.
But you made it work. I'm going to say this. You didn't seem drunk. Like, if that makes sense. Like, it was well within character. If you had been doing a paladin, I think you would have screwed it up. But it was well within character. So, if you show up and you're drunk, or
just calls, I answer.
Again, late night panel, and you were being your own character. So
Yeah, people have been like, you need to brief these authors on their characters better, and I'm like, they're choosing the characters, and they're their characters.
In answer to the original question, one piece of advice for prospective panelists, I'm going to say somewhere in the first 10 minutes, make a joke at your own expense. There is no easier way to show that you are not an egotistical blowhard, you are not someone who takes themselves too seriously, that you are there to have fun and engage with your peers and your fellow writers. Don't go overboard with it. Like, don't become like uncomfortably self-deprecating and woe me is, I want someone to buy my book. That's terrible. Don't do that. But like, start off, setting the tone of like, hey, I'm a fun person. You can laugh with me. I'm not going to get offended if you also take the P word me. Remember, this is the British phrase.
Go down to my sale.
Yeah, show up
No, I 100%.
at some point in the first 10 minutes. Make fun of yourself.
I was going to say, 100% agree with that. Like, I'm a person that, again, I do like the craft of writing and everything, and I do like marketing, publishing, and I will full on say all my fails. I'm like, I've done this wrong, and this is why it was wrong. But like, I'm it's not bad to be honest about that. But for my bit of advice, and this is just a personal thing, I'm a note taker. I love that. So having something, and I usually bring a piece of paper, a notepad, sticky notes. So when I'm on a panel and they're talking about topics, I'll note something down so I'm not necessarily interjecting when I'm not supposed to interject, but I'm not forgetting things. And then also it allows me to like glance down, and I have a better chance to have a more concise answer than just trying to put it together on the fly. So I do like my sticky notes. I do like anytime I'm doing these things to have something that I can jot down, like, okay, let me make sure I have this point when it's my turn.
So that I keep my mouth shut. So, I mean, I totally understand it. So, have you guys ever had that magic moment after a panel where somebody says, by the way, I'm buying your book, or I've bought your book? Because I know, I think it's Gail Martin, she was saying in an online discussion, this is one of the big differences between indie and trad. Trad knows, I've sold this many books because my publisher told me so. Mama told me so, basically, right? But indie authors and indie publishers, they know sometimes down to the moment they bought a book is sold. She said that she always sees an increase in sales at DragonCon once she sees a spike when they announce that she's coming, a spike when they put up the app, and then once she starts doing panels. That's a great one. We're going to do a Q&A section right after this question, Atlas. That is a great question.
I will say, like, okay, DragonCon's a little exception because I actually don't have a booth there. But a lot of the other cons that I participate in, I've been fortunate enough to have a table space. So what I have seen is if I'm on more and more panels, I have a greater chance to make sales afterwards because people will come by my table and be like, oh, I love this panel. I love the topic. I love your answer. I love this question. And we get in that conversation. And so I do have a hike in sales, but I'm also physically there selling as well.
Yeah.
I think Gail's mostly sees it because she's tracking it on Amazon. So,
yeah, I 100% agree with Katie. Like, everyone's got their own different, especially in indie, their own different style of selling as far as their books go. And you don't want to come across as like a desperate or sleazy used carsman type. Like that will turn away potential readers so fast. But you've got to kind of find where your niche is. And for what I've found, and what Katie clearly has also found, is like, we're on panels and we sound like we know what we're talking about. That goes a long way towards earning potential reader trust. Like if I sound like I actually understand narrative craft and character arcs and dialogue, someone who is into those specific aspects of their book is going to be like, you know what? That sounds like this guy actually could write a decent book. And then they come to the table.
Yes, I mean, I've had people walk up sometimes.
So, and that can happen.
Sometimes I've had them buy my display book if it was a panel that I brought a display book with. I usually have a booth at DragonCon, but I also do the Fantasy Gather or smaller cons. And yeah, I always see September usually just overall from Amazon selling point and online. Usually there's a pretty significant spike near the beginning of the month.
So Atlas Creed asked, how do you guys keep answers on track to avoid the ramble?
Know where you're going to end up. Maybe this is the plotter, but what if you know the key point you're trying to drive home, find the most efficient route to get there. And it helps if you have an illustrative example to put it in, especially on the craft side of things, but also there are plenty of like anecdotes that are applicable within like the publishing side of stuff you can also bring out, but know where you're going before you get in the car, as it were.
Yeah, I was going to say,
I
answer the question and then stop.
I think this is also where the moderator comes in, and as the track director, I have gone in and gone, hey, I need you to ask this question faster. So,
well, and I think, sorry, I was going to say, for me, it's like my experiences being a moderator also helped me more answer questions when I'm a panelist in the most concise way, because I am aware of the limited time and the amount of questions we're trying to get through. So because of that, I'm trying to be respectful for my fellow panelists, because we all want to have our say. We want to have a chance to express whatever knowledge we have on said topic. But yeah, that's that awareness of, it's not a you thing. You are not giving a lecture. We are here all trying to give our 2 cents in a pseudo rapid fire version.
Yeah,
it is. So, I can speak. Any other questions, Atlas? Or we're going to get to the buy my book portion where I go, can you please tell the audience where we can find you if you have a new release or an upcoming release, or what book you want them to check out that's yours? We're going to start with Marshall because I made him go last at the start.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, so I currently have 6 books out, but the big one that I'm most excited about and that I want everybody else to be excited about is my forthcoming traditional debut, The Henchperson's Guide to Unionizing, which is a cozy fantasy that follows Igor, a mad scientist laboratory assistant, as he teams up with a witch's feline familiar and a vampiric count's bride to rid themselves of their toxic relationships and embrace life on their own terms. It's a cute, fun, cozy horror comedy. I had a blast writing it. It's basically Horrible Bosses meets What We Do in the Shadows, and that comes out September 22nd from Bantam Books. You can find it at all major book retailers, and if you would like to pre-order it, that is available now. My preference would be through Barnes and Noble, but do it wherever you think is best for you. Or I also have a pre-order campaign with my local bookstore, Eagle Eye Books in Decatur, Georgia.
Thanks, Megan. Well, okay, I guess I'll go next. Right now, hi again, my name is Katharine Wibell. I have 9 full lengths and 16 novellas available, again, depending on various series and the type of high fantasy you like. My biggest things for this year, just to be aware of, is that I will be releasing through my own personal store the special editions of my omnibus for my Viking Dark Fantasy series. It's dark retelling of Nordic myth. Again, this is a 16 novella series, but they're going to be compiled in these beautiful omnibuses, and so those will be releasing hopefully May to the general public if you want to order through me. And then beyond that, one of my goals later on this year is to also release the first book of a Greek myth-based dark fantasy retelling, focusing on the character Atalanta, who in Greek myth is arguably the only female hero of that mythos. So you get to enjoy her tale in that book series, and that will also be launching as a Kickstarter and a special edition form too.
Sorry, I was sitting here starting to go through all my Greek mythology. Like, wouldn't Eurydice be considered a hero too?
Well, it depends. Like when you're talking about hero, like there's definitely some female forwards like Penelope and everything that are these big, prominent females that do great things. And then there's the heroes, again, Greek hero, who go out and they fight in the wars and they do the battles and they do the great feats. That's why she's arguably females only hero. She's the tomboy.
It's obvious I can't stand mythology and was like totally bored because I instantly started seeing them carrying apart. Never mind. Sorry. I have a trilogy coming out. Book 1 is out now. Book 2 launches on next Monday, and then the 3rd book will be out in the middle of April. So you can go buy these. Actually, if you want to get book 2 from me, you can buy it from me right now because it's on my website before I launch it on Amazon.
And that is the continuation of your Twisted Luck, but it's a complete fresh entry point if you haven't read Twisted Luck, right?
For the most part. I mean, you're going to be a little lost. I suppose that's too late now. For the most part, if you've never read any of the Twisted Luck stuff, you're going to be like, I don't understand what's going on with why the world merged, but it's a new story that picks up brand new plot points and everything else from the end of my first series.
Set in the universe.
Yes,
So
it is
set
set
in
in
the
the same universe. See, she says that. I'm like, well, shoot, I should have put like one of those author's notes at the beginning that like explains some of the stuff that you have learned in the and I'm like, it's
we
already
can always
published.
accept.
We're done.
We're going to keep with the panel practice and showing everybody this is how we wrap up a panel. These have been our amazing panelists. We can hang out afterwards in a live and talk more with the audience members if they want. But we will be doing another panel on reimaginings of classics, fairy tales, and classic stories next week with 3 other amazing authors. So, and that's going to be at 9 o'clock. We did this one at 8 o'clock because some people go to bed early. Yeah. But so thank you guys for joining us.
Some people also get up early.
Yeah, okay. I have insomnia, so none of this phases me. Yeah, I get up and I go to bed late. So, thank you for popping in. So, really, now this is like the close of the panel. Anybody's welcome to stay and hang out, ask questions. I am so proud of Marshall. I'm just going to say that again. I feel so invested in your career in a way that I should not because I'm not your wife.
You had,
So,
you had a big hand in getting it started, so
yeah, I did. And I when you went to Nerdy Gra, I went to the board and I went, he needs to come. You need him here, and he will be great. Trust me. And so I definitely like forced them on you on them, but it worked out really wonderful because finding the right group and the right people for a con is always great. And I think you had a good time.
yeah, absolutely.
So. And Katharine's amazing too. I've had the most fun because I've got into it's so funny because I did not know that you guys were on Book Talk until
you, Marshall.
Yeah.
Have we met?
Yep. And so I met Mel at a con actually. So she was standing behind the bar and I was standing behind the bar and we started serving drinks with people.
That's a different topic for a different day, is BarCon. And I'm like, to explain that to people, like, the networking ability at cons is a whole other topic.
Yeah, no. There was like, what do we do for our first topic? And I was going, it was so funny because my brother goes, it may be kind of meta, but a panel on panels is what you should do. So, because
I have strong opinions on panels.
Yeah, I mean, it is. I have strong opinions about how people should panel because I see a lot of it.
Very
occupational hazard.
I swear this isn't like a self plug, but I do have in my TikTok profile a writing advice playlist, and somewhere in there, not too far down, are a series I did on like panel best practices. So like, anyone wants to read more of my opinions.
So, hi, Shirley. This is honestly us just hanging out. You're welcome to self-plug on this one. I do a bunch of stuff on what I call author development. So, because there's a ton of skills that you just don't have until you suddenly need them. And nobody tells you, hey, by the way, as an author, you're going to need to have to be good at the hand cell and the panel and this and the that and the blah.
Canva.
Learn how to set up an LLC.
Oh, speaking, Atlas said he's doing his first panel in 2 weeks, so this has been great. I am so glad, Atlas.
Also, I've been trying to talk. I've been poking Atlas because I've also met him on Book Talk many a year ago. It feels like, but I've been trying to get him to the Dragon Con to come down and like hang out with us there.
I think he'd have fun. So there's like, it's so funny because people are like, well, how many authors go to Dragon Con? I'm like, do you mean how many are listed in the database or how many are there? Because those are two very different numbers. And one I can actually calculate and the other one I refuse to try.
You never know who you're going to meet until you're like crossing paths.
Yeah, no, it's that's how I think the first time I ever saw Marshall was you won the Baen Short Story Award, right, Marshall?
Yes. Yes, I did.
So yes, was that he's like that was.
Or I
the
came in
dark
second.
one.
Sorry, there was a cat eating a thing.
You got a stack of books that were worth grueling over. So
Yeah.
and so you just never know. And I love Marshall's story of like him coming in because I have people who are going, well, if I got turned down, how do I get on panels, right? And then I'm like, you make sure you're available. And I know that sounds weird, but you're available for that last minute. Oh dear God, I need a panelist.
Actually, I wish I said this earlier for the legit thing, was like, if you want to get into cons, learn who the directors are of the tracks you want to be into, and if you attend just as an attendee, introduce yourself.
Yep.
Oh yeah. Jeffrey Lagoon Falcone, the first time he ever got on a panel, he said, he walked up to me and he was like, hey, I'm here. You have this really cool panel. It was on food, and he actually has been a professional chef, and he's like, I'd love to talk on that. And I'm like, okay, cool. And like when you applied this year, Marshall, and Regina messaged us and was like, so what do you guys think? And I'm like, I would totally use him. Marshall's great. He's super reliable. He shows up and he's pleasant. And so he was like, she's like, okay, cool. And I'm like, I'd use him on multiple panels. And digital media was like, break out a drunk mermaid. A drunk mermaid always wins the day.
Yeah.
So
The ultimate rock, paper, scissors paneling.
I think Sarah Sover was at her local bookstore. She had a small indie bookstore out where she lives in Johns Creek. And so, the owner, she knows the owner called her and was like, you need to come in. There's some books that got ordered. And the person, they'd been in the audience for your panel, and they came in and they ordered a book by each of you.
Oh, that's so sweet.
Love that.
So, I mean, it is funny. Because the other thing also that's great is it's a great way to, I always encourage people who are, particularly people who are very narrow on what they write, to get good at moderating, because it means I can put you on things. Like it was Chuck Gannon. Chuck Gannon does not like to moderate a panel. He will if you beg him. But he's like, but I want to be on a fantasy lit panel. And I'm like, Chuck, you don't have a single fantasy title. I can have you moderate a panel, but you don't have a single fantasy title. I think that's part of why he finally wrote a fantasy book.
Yeah, I feel that. One of these days I'm going to write an urban fantasy just so I can get on the UF track.
You know how you can get on the UF track, though, is talk to Carol. She has a post on her FB about how to, because she does a lot of fan panels where she's like, hey, so if you like Buffy or Salem Witch Trials or any of those urban fantasy shows, she'll bring you up for that sometime. So the other thing is also pitch a cozy panel to her. Marshall has probably like the easiest pitch idea ever He came up to me at JordanCon and he goes, hey, so what do I need to do to get a cozy panel? Suggest a cozy panel? Okay, cool. Can we have a cozy panel in fantasy literature?
Lo and behold.
It was pretty funny. And then this is the one reason why I try to stick to the names of the database is, in case you didn't notice, I'm ADHD. I forgot to tell Marshall he was on the panel.
Oop.
I heard this story.
I was so relieved that Marshall's smarter than I am. He came up to me and he's like, you put me on the panel. I'm like, didn't I tell you? Oh, shit.
Oopsie daisy, I'm putting you on the panel that you created.
I am a bloodhound. I have the scent of the cozy, and I've got to get on it.
But that is sometimes how people end up on panels. I have literally looked, like, I think it was Bryce one year, and I was doing a medicine panel. Like, and Bryce O'Connor, who is the publisher of Wraithmarked, and their art director. What many people don't know is he actually has a PTD. He's a doctorate of physical therapy. So I grabbed him on it and put him on in there, and because we were short of people. And he was just like, I was just going to sit in the audience. I'm like, I need an extra panelist. I only got 2. Come here. So, sometimes it's dangerous to sit in the audience of panels.
Again, you just have to be ready.
You have to be ready. Be ready for anything.
Can happen.
Anything gonna happen.
You are the moderator now.
Yeah. I don't let Jody I don't sign Jody moderation panels many times now that I think about it since then.
You seem hygienic, clean, and moderately sober. Moderate this panel.
Sometimes it seems like that. So Mel looks like she wants to go to bed.
Yeah. I also hear my dogs tapping upstairs, so it's probably time for me to let them out. So I know. I'm ruled by my dog's cycle.
Hey, Garrett came. You know Garrett. We all love Garrett.
Hey, Garrett.
Oh, wait. You two probably don't know Garrett. Garrett is a super fan.
Oh, I love that.
He's amazing.
I spent the weekend outside doing hard physical labor, and I'm tired. And my alarm goes off at 6:15 tomorrow morning. So,
I don't know why it has to go off at 6:15. Your commute is very short.
It is, but I try to be good. And again, if I don't feed the cats at exactly, 6:45, you would think they're dying. They're absolutely dying.
Creatures of habit.
Oh my God. Oh, no. Cats, I swear, cats and dogs can tell time better than you can. And I hate daylight savings time because I can't convince them that they need to wait another hour. And it's like, I know, but it's only 4:30. No, it's 5:30. You need to feed us. No, not yet. Yeah, no. Daylight savings time should be abolished just because of what it does to the pets' feeding cycles. Hi, 100%. Garrett. See, he's like, nope, he's got the animals sitting there going, we're starving. Yeah, no, my cats are never starving.
Okay, my cat thinks he's dying all the time if I walk past the pantry where we have all the cat things locked up.
Well, I hear my tip-tapping dog, so I will say thank you so much for letting me be on the panel,
everybody.
And I will see you.
Okay, I will.
Next con. The next
yes!
At the next live.
At Jordan Con.
Yes.
Are you going to Jordan Con?
Yeah, I'm guessing.
Nice.
Yeah.
Thank you guys for coming.
See you there. Bye.
Bye. Okay. Thank you guys for coming. We're going to do this again next week with a different topic and another batch of amazing authors. We're going to do retellings and reimaginings. Don't worry, Garrett. I'm going to try and get this up on YouTube. If I'm smart, I'll do it tonight. So, thank you guys for coming.